Finding the perfect marriage of story
Hey,
and gameplay is a science that many developers still struggle with today. Bioshock has left an indelible mark on gaming narrative that can be seen and felt in many modern releases, but Irrational's motto remained from the beginning: don't start with the story, start with the gameplay.
So we'll watch this because it's an extra feature of the game. So I hope you enjoy. This is the first time that I'm actually watching this commentary intro.
A lot of fans probably wonder about the process you go through in writing the story and the design for a game like Bioshock. You've talked about how it evolves over time and what eventually ships is very different than your initial vision. Do you guys write like a script or a design document for the game, and that becomes sort of the Bible that everyone drives towards?
Now that I've found a directive cut,
it's different for every game. Like System Shock 2, I went back to release and I wrote a design document, and like we started that project in September, and the design document
I can now show you all on here.
So like in a month, like I wrote the design document
and probably splice it into my YouTube channel at the same time.
Got expanded upon, but the basic design really didn't change on that. Where on Bioshock, I think it evolved in real time much more. Like we had a pretty substantial design shift like a year before.
But it's nice being able to learn about the game,
Bioshock,
which was a
big
hit
much
when
more
it came
about
out,
the experience
and
being
still
an
is a big hit
than
with
about
a lot
being
of
in your
people.
character sheet. And so the game evolved more towards that experiential kind of thing, and making sure every idea was expressed in the world as well as just on your character sheet. So before you had a lot of things like, I'm doing fire damage or electrical damage, but that was sort of a number flying off ahead versus, the whole notion of like, there's barrels and you light them on fire and then you can pick them up and throw them.
But you'd have stats coming off characters and all that stuff.
Much more so.
Oh, really?
And that evolved, sort of, we did a design shift, but I don't know how well that got documented. I think we were moving so fast that we were just sort of changing things, laying down the tracks as we went right ahead of us. And the same with the screenplay. The screenplay there is no screenplay. It's a bunch of probably Excel files and fragments of Word documents that I'd write, and I'd go to recording sessions and I'd rewrite on the fly once I hear the actor perform, because once the actor takes on it, you listen to their voice and you say, what you wrote doesn't really matter. Like, what is the right thing for this actor playing this role to be saying? So I tend to do a lot of rewriting in a session,
really.
And then like you have a bug late at night where somebody says, this doesn't make any sense, and you're like, oh God, you have to write a new audio log and try to get the actor back in, or you figure out what's the best way to get this idea across. Yeah. And is it an audio log? Is it a poster on the wall? Is it a piece of text that pops up on the screen? And that's always dependent on how much time you have and what actor availability is. So, the plans sort of fall apart. I think we've worked on that a bunch since on the new project we're working on, where we are trying to document things a lot better and keep things a lot more logical, but the train was running so fast on Bioshock that we just sort of...
I mean, early on we got the Andrew Ryan scene in, like we'd said before, and that was kind of like the keystone. Like, we're going to put a lot of work into this, so this can't change. Everything that happens before or after that don't really involve a lot of departments working together to make a scene, those things are very malleable, and if you need to change audio logs to represent a story, if you need to add lines or take away lines, that's very doable. And I think for a while we even had like text-to-speech.
We even did that, I remember for Infinite with Booker and Elizabeth and all their dialogue, and that really didn't work very well, because you'd have these dramatic scenes and it'd be like, Elizabeth, we need to go to Comstock, and it just... Yeah. It almost had no value as far as I was concerned.
Atlas radio on ahead says you were
we've already played through this part.
Fisheries.
This part we've already passed, so...
But if your heads up to the Wharf Master's office and find
I find it quite interesting that they've managed to stick this in the remastered version of the game. To be able to document
Ken has so much of
everything that they've
these
put
games
through
in his head, and you're sort of you can keep it all straight, or try to, with all the different things and changes. But from the team perspective, Sean, I mean, because this is evolving and Ken's thinking in his head about how this all ties together, how does the team sort of keep up with what the whole game is going to look like?
There's a lot of specifics that can change. For instance, Atlas used to have a southern drawl.
Right.
And then we recast to the Irish.
And we actually cast an actor, wrote the lines, did the whole thing, and realized that people hated that character and distrusted him from the first start. So we had to rewrite him, recast him, redo everything.
Yeah. From a team perspective, you kind of get a sense on which things are going to be really volatile and that you probably want to push off till later, because if you work on it now, it might change. Larger themes don't tend to change too much, meaning we knew we were in Rapture, we knew we had Big Daddies, we knew we had Little Sisters, we knew we had Splicers, we knew what the arc of the story was about Jack coming into Rapture, and the specifics of this radiolog versus that radiolog didn't really affect anyone outside the audio team at that time, because we could still build the environment. We still knew what the environment was. We still knew what the animations were. There are areas you learn just by working in the same space for a while that this scene, I'm not touching this yet because I know that it's going to get changed a lot. I think these themes are pretty nailed down, so I'm going to focus the team on getting these things done.
I won't leave you twisting in the wind.
And this is at the very start when we first entered Rapture.
We're gonna need to draw
For
in
those
line.
who weren't there when we started.
The audio logs were, a great part of the game, and something that if you're a true fan, people really go in and listen to those and piece that all together. But I imagine there's a lot of work that goes into deciding, well, this is better for an audio log versus game dialogue, and there's the act of sort of cutting back and sort of saying, we need to be clear about what
The
the
audio
narrative is for
logs
the
are an
game. What was that
achievement-based
process
thing
like?
as well,
The
so you
audio
get
logs were the
rewarded
things you
for
added at
finding
the
all
end,
the
were
audio
those
logs.
ideas that you had for the game, but then said, hey, maybe
I
we'd
think
demote
I
these a little bit and
found
make them
all
audio
of them
logs.
up to now.
As Sean was saying, there's
But
sort of a hierarchy
I
of
could be
expense
wrong, it
that
doesn't
you have to
notify
face,
you
and so
whether or
any
not
ideas you have to
found
get
them all
across,
until you've
especially
got
as you
the
start playing the
achievement
game,
that
you realize,
says
well,
you've
this
got
doesn't
them.
make sense, that doesn't make sense. You have to figure out how you can introduce that idea. And generally, as the train is moving, you try to think of cheaper and cheaper ways
Most
to get
audio
those
books
ideas
contain
across. If it's less
hidden
important, it goes to an
codes,
audio log. If it's less
so
important,
that
it goes
gets
to
you
a
into
poster
logs.
on the
But if you can
wall.
hack the log, you don't
Well, there's
necessarily
also
need
characters
to
that
listen
you
to
can
them.
bring in that have
But
audio
you
logs
could,
that aren't.
if you
You know,
really
Atlas,
wanted to
Tenenbaum, those are your big ones.
listen and try
You
and
can
find
bring in
any hidden
somebody
Easter eggs.
to do
But I'll
a
explain a lot of
short,
the Easter
a
eggs
few
as
different
we go
audio
through
logs.
the
It's a
game
character
already.
that some players may not even find, but
Right.
it adds a little bit of depth to Rapture.
And it also, like, usually characters, each character generally is about a certain idea, and we don't just sort of come up with characters like we have an idea problem that we need to solve, and so let's introduce a character who's this guy, and he will be the guy who sort of shepherds you through that idea.
Hello, motherfucker.
Hello, motherfucker! We are currently watching a director's commentary file that we have found in-game. So once this scene's finished, we'll be right back to where we picked up the audio file, and then going into the whole idea of everything that they went through,
Yes, my days in beekeeping
and the
school are a
makers.
blur. But I do seem to remember something about that enzyme you keep blabbing on about.
The enzymes I've got,
So
but
as you're going through the game
So I've
and
got the enzyme,
writing things,
but that means I
rewriting
must have
things,
missed
were
an
there
audio
things with
file,
the original
'cause I don't remember
Bioshock
hearing
that
that audio
you've
file
always been
earlier.
surprised that more people
So I'll
didn't
go and
pick
find
up
that
on, or was there
before I
something
move
that,
on to the next
a
level.
connection to a character you thought was really going to resonate with people, which
I've
didn't,
already
anything
saved
like
the
that?
little
No, it's
sister
the
in this
opposite.
level.
I was
So
amazed. I don't know how
I'm
you
making
felt, but
sure
I
I
was
take lots
amazed how
of
many
photos,
people
because the more
connected to
photos I
what you
take,
kindly-
the more
Yeah.
research I
like-
can get done.
because
and
I
the
think
more
it
damage
was
I
a
can
real.
do to the
When I wrote
enemies.
that speech,
This is hard mode.
I don't think anybody in the
I've
team
not
was
got
like,
it
"Oh
on
my God,
normal,
this
so I
is like
literally-
really this or that."
For
And I
me
don't
to
think
get
I
through
really
it, I
had any
need to
sense
get
that
the
people were going to
maximum
connect to it.
amount
I
of stats
think
can get.
we ended up sort of over time finding more ways to support
And
the notion
Bubs as
throughout
well,
the
at
game.
the very beginning of the stream, we
and I don't
went
think I really,
into
until I
the-
heard Pat put together the
Bioshock museum that's
the
on the
revelation
game,
moment,
which shows you
you
all
know,
the
whereas like
concepts
you know
of
where you had
how
all the bits that
what
Atlas had
ideas
said
they
in the
had and
past
what
building
they
up, and
built
then there was a
from
visual that went
to
along
get
with
to
that.
the
That's
game
when I
where it
realized it
is
was going to be
now,
a really powerful moment.
which I'll be
But even
introducing
so,
into
I
my
still
YouTube
was.
channel
Did I think
later
people
today
really were
when
going
I
to connect to it or really
edit
even understand
the
it? Because
clip
it's pretty
out of the stream.
out there.
Yeah.
And that it was meta commentary too. I think that completely like. I think I thought like, oh, it's kind of meta, cool, but people connected to it in a much bigger
Oh
way.
yeah, the choice and everything, and also just being able to kind of roll back and think of all those other moments throughout the game, and it's
Yeah.
a great revelation like that. They're few and far between in games where you sort of like then you want to play it again.
These are
and
the
oh, wow, really, that
co-directors
does
and
all make
creators
sense,
of
right?
the
And
game.
I think as a team,
That's
we were
currently
definitely
speaking
proud
for
of what we had done.
those who
but
caught
up
this
till that
stream
point,
midway.
SWAT 4 was the biggest game that we worked on, and we had no expectation of that anybody would pick this up. Or even like Bioshock cosplay. I remember the first cosplay I saw with a guy in the Big Daddy suit, and his little daughter was in the kitchen cabinet. I think that was the first one I saw. I was like, what? Whoa, people know this stuff. That's insane.
Yeah, people were building these outfits, and and that only expanded with Infinite. I mean, that sort of went crazy with Infinite, where people were cosplaying Elizabeth and Luteces and Booker. It meant a lot to people, and I don't think that's something we ever saw coming, and we're deeply grateful for it, because it's one thing to make a game and get good reviews and stuff like that. It's another thing to have things that people are having.
Yeah, definitely, because this is the remastered Bioshock.
And their tattoos
they've
and
added
naming their
in
children
the
after
director files,
characters.
and
You
they've
can't
added
plan
in
for that. And I think
the
the only way
museum
that
at the
could
start of the
happen
main
is
menu,
either
where
we
you
just
can
make something
literally go
that's something
around
that
and
you're
see
deeply in love
all
with
the
and passionate
different
about. I can say
pictures
we
and
were.
stuff
It was
like
something
that.
there's a lot of passion on the
I've
team
had to
about.
like undim
We
the screen
didn't
because
know
I
people
don't know
were
how long
gonna
the clip's gonna last.
take away what they did.
Would you kindly?
But it's gonna show you different clips
Would
of
you
Round.
kindly? Powerful phrase.
Yeah, they're pretty. It was pretty good.
Familiar
We got
phrase.
some 10.
Would you kindly?
Some
Would
10
you kindly
plus
get this?
spaces
Would you
and stuff
kindly
like
find
that.
that? Would you kindly find that?
But it got a bit sweaty towards the end of the night.
Kindly head to
we
Ryan's
managed to
office
cope
and
as
kill
much
the
as we
son of a
did.
bitch.
Part
Other
of the
than
challenge of that, though, is
alright.
when people
Not
love
too
fiction
bad.
so much and they dive into every word written in every audio log and try and connect all the fiction, make sure it all makes sense. Are there any things from that game that you sort of look back and it's like, oh wow, like we didn't explain this and we should have, or things that fans have misinterpreted over the years?
There are things we think that we did that should have or shouldn't have been in the game. Like I was never a fan of having two endings, and I think
That's what the publisher was asking you to sort of have a.
that was the
right?
one thing that 2K, and they were very hands off. That was the one
Also,
thing
they
insisted
didn't
on.
want
it's
alternative
nothing I
endings
really
for the game.
thought was a good
That's
idea, because
interesting.
they're still limited, even though they're multiple. They're still limited, and so that was something that we ended up doing. One of the endings was far better than the other one. I mean, there's no. It's clear that I was much more interested in the happier ending with the little sisters than I was with the nuclear
I think
submarine
that was.
ending.
I'm sure
Yeah.
part of it was the idea that if this game is, if you're making a choice throughout it, I'm sure when some people are like, oh well, then it has to be a payoff, right?
Right, except the game was really about
That
lack
there
of
was no
choice,
choice. Yeah,
about
right,
there not
yeah,
being
yeah.
a choice. So
Yeah.
that always struck me as a tension.
But
that
the
was
only
weird,
choice
but,
that you
at
never
the end of
got
the day,
that
they
you
were putting up
didn't
a lot of
need,
money
didn't
and,
get control
so
doing
I
is
can't
whether or
really
not to
complain. They
harvest
weren't
or
in
save the
tutorial
little
at all
sisters.
in
That was your
development, so,
choice.
yeah, that was the one
Which
thing,
determined
but
how you played the game.
that's a game that I wouldn't have put the boss battle in, the final boss battle. Like we seem to end up doing that over and over and over again. Every time we start a project, I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. We're never going to do that again, and we end up doing it.
Right.
We're not good at boss battles, and that you're fighting that guy, and look, this is the naked dude. It just doesn't work.
Totally makes sense.
But and it works really pretty well up till then, but then it just doesn't work. That boss battle's silly.
I quite enjoyed that boss battle at the end, but this is where that's the last final thing that we've got to do. He's not actually naked, he's just that he's got so much